Thank you so much, Romeo Busiku, for those comments that are coming through from our dear viewers. Of course, keep those coming on hashtag Morning at NTV. This is Morning at NTV, and of course, at this point in time, we'd like to delve directly into our Take Note conversation this morning. Now, the Ministry of Health is investigating 2 cases of children who reportedly developed serious skin problems after being vaccinated against the measles, rubella, and polio vaccines. Dr. Ruth Jane Acheng, the health minister, said Friday the cases are from the same family and samples have been sent to the Virus Research Institute and Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention for, of course, further investigation. Unfortunately, the news just caused panic and poured oil on the fire that was already brewing, with anti-vaxxers taking advantage that, to claim that they were right. Now, to reassure us on this particular vaccines and their safety, we do have Dr. Dio Munube. He is the president of the Uganda Pediatrics Association, and also Dr. Ruth Grace from the Uganda Medical Association. Many thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you. Good morning, Mala. Thank you for having me here.
Good morning. I think I'll start with Dr. Munube. When a month ago, when this, drive was rolled out, and we saw quite a number of parents, saying that, no, my child is not vaccinated. We hosted you here, and you reassured us that these vaccinations are safe for our children. And now, of course, over the past few days, I'm seeing this in the news and on social media, complaints coming up. What could be the reason under this? I just want us to lay the ground bare for us to have an understanding.
Thank you. I would just want to start by reassuring the public that vaccines are safe. Vaccines are checked and tested before they are given to our children. With regard to the mass measles and rubella campaign, as we prepare for a campaign, we normally go through several aspects. One is to train the health workers about the vaccine, and very important in this case, since we were introducing rubella for the first time, they needed to ensure that this training took place. Within the training, we also have a component which looks at side effects of vaccines, and in particular, adverse events following immunization, or we call it AEFIs. Now, in that section of the training, we do train the health workers about what to anticipate. The first thing with any vaccine is the pain from the injection site, because once we inject you, we penetrate your skin, so there's always a reaction. Second thing are fevers that do occur. Third things, for this vaccine in particular, the measles and rubella vaccine, it's a live attenuated vaccine, which means there's a smaller percentage of the disease itself that you receive. And the body can respond to it. And when you get a rash, it also indicates that your body has developed immunity or has developed soldiers to fight the infection. In rare cases, you do have severe skin reaction. It's not common that measles and rubella vaccine can cause these rashes. But as you mentioned clearly, the Ministry of Health has noted it. The investigations are taking place. The 2 children who have this rash have their samples taken off to confirm whether they actually have measles. Because I can look at you and say, yes, you have a measles-like rash, but the lab will confirm that the measles is there or not.
All right, okay. Let me go to, Grace. And whenever we're taking our children to the hospital, just randomly, of course, after giving birth to this, bouncing baby boy or girl, you're always given the chart of vaccinations. And when you go to any, pretty much appointment of a vaccination, before it happens, you're always given, some caution that this is the vaccination, it's going to do A, B, C, but there could be possible side effects, 1, 2, 3. In this mass vaccination drive, one of the things that came clearly from the social media, of course, complaints is that the public was not cautioned of the mild side effects that could have taken place.
Well, maybe let me go back to where you started from. When a mother's given birth, it's supposed to receive the vaccine immediately after birth. But because sometimes there's no one to give it to you, when you've just given birth, you have to get it the following day. And then second, about the question, in every drug, and before we start blaming the vaccine, before we start blaming anything, every drug has a potential to cause an adverse effect or a side effect. And as clinical trials are being made, it's always about the benefit always over the risk. And if the benefit outweighs the risk in this case, why not give the vaccine? Why not give a child that medication? If people are maybe questioning about the questioning, the Pediatric Association came here, the ministry came here, and even health workers, as they're being taught how to give the vaccine, they're also told about the side effects. And these, they actually address the parents. But because most times people get excited about, okay, the vaccine is happening, so let us do this. Maybe let us not actually have it. People miss out the tiny few things. And maybe I'll ask you a question. When you're applying your lipstick, how many times do you read the caution note that is inside there? It could cause a reaction.
I do.
Exactly, but how many do? If you're going to take a paracetamol tab, Panadol, a tab, to just take it because you have a headache, how many people do care to read and say,
but the question
this
that
can
was
cause
coming
this?
through, the question that was coming through from the public is that they didn't hammer in, well enough on the possible side effects. Do you think that was a shortcoming on the side of the ministry?
I think, just to re-emphasize it, the side effects or the adverse events are actually shared. The worry, of course, is if you have a severe side effect, which occurs 1 in 100,000 children vaccinated, it's not one of the main things you talk about. You'd want to talk about the side effect, which occurs maybe 1 in every 5 children. That's the pain. That's the fever.
So since it was somewhat insignificant, there was no reason of,
I
shouting it out.
I won't say it is insignificant. It actually is. And that's why the process of identifying these children takes place. And as was mentioned in this press statement by the minister, we did have about 90 reported, and of those 90, about 13 that were more than just mild. And then this family, unfortunately, had 3 children who had severe rashes. And as mentioned, the investigation is ongoing.
Right.
There are also some reports from social media which vary. A mother sends a post to a group and says, my child received the vaccination and has a rash. But unfortunately, the mother hasn't reported to a health facility. The social media trends now, and I tell you, I also have quite a number of those messages, is that someone sends me a text, good morning, Dr. Deo, how are you? My child is unwell. Next thing I see a picture appearing, this is a rash, what is going on? So you have to be cautious.
Okay. All right. Dr. Ruth, just let us break down the possibility or the side effects, these side effects. We know that one of the minor ones, we have mild fever. You pointed out to the pain at the point of, the vaccination. You also pointed out to mild skin rash. Those are the minor side effects known to every medical practitioner. Now, let's break down what could have happened to these children who we are having, the figures here, like you clearly said, a total of 90 complaints registered by the Ministry of Health, 17, pretty much, beg your pardon, 13 cases need investigation, what you call the report casting. And also we have 10 cases on social media yet to be warranted and verified. So let's just get into the medical conversation and break that down. What could have happened to these children who were having the complaints already, posted?
Okay, like my colleague has already mentioned, Dr. Deo, adverse reactions do happen. When this drug is given to a child, if this vaccine is given to a child, your body reacts to it. It is the right way for the body to react to it. And because the body reacts to it, you get immunized. Because we get vaccinated, which means I'm going to give you the drug. But then if your body does not recognize that actually this is a foreign something in my body and react to it, you don't get immunized against that disease. Some people may receive this drug and not get immunized against it. So someone is there, they took their child for vaccination, but they actually did not get immunized. And the child actually come back suffering from measles or rubella. Then when you give it and the body reacts to it, different people react differently. And the best way that I think the world should go now, which is where the world is heading in medicine, is looking at the genetic component of someone. If I'm going to give you a dose of a drug, I should study how your body should react, you as a specific person. But how many times are we going to do that? And we actually have the capacity to do it right now. For over 8 million children have received this vaccine. We shall not deny that side effects do happen, adverse reactions do happen, and perhaps maybe we should have made more mention about it. Though, if we'd also do this, tell people about the side effects.
They will shun away from it.
Yes, exactly. So how do you balance the boat? And how do you
So it
balance
is
the
a
both?
case of balancing the
Yes,
both
but how do you
and
balance the
making
both
sure
here?
that you get to
Because
the target.
the truth is that the benefit
Mm.
is higher than the risk.
Right.
We have 3,000 cases that were suspected then. 46,000 confirmed in hospitals of children with measles and rubella. Of those, about 500 died. 500. So should we just not give the vaccines? And we also not to forget that polio also once existed in Uganda, but then because of the vaccination, right now you can walk around and see a person with what?
Right.
With polio.
Right.
So yes, the side effects do happen, they exist, they do. It is unfortunate for some people who didn't get the information about it, about the adverse effects, the potential side effects, but also need to remember this is for protection of our children.
Okay. Dr. Munube, she's pointed out to something that is quite critical. There's a child who can get the vaccination but not get immunized against it. What happens in that child's, body system, or do you call it the immune system?
The immune system.
The immune system. What exactly happens? Why should a child get a vaccination and not be immunized against it? The body rejecting it completely. What happens?
So let me use a simple way to explain it. If I have a glass of water and I'm supposed to put in a dye, and I get a red dye, and I pour the red dye into the water and it doesn't turn red, then there's a problem with the dye. It turns green. Now it is similar here. When we introduce the vaccine into the child, the body cells are able to identify the vaccine and say this is a measles vaccine, and the cells actually remember that this is a measles vaccine, and they develop other cells to fight the measles vaccine, so that in the future, when you get that infection, the body is more than ready. It's almost an instant fight. It's almost an instant fight.
Correct.
Which enables you not to get a severe form of the illness. And as Dr. Grace has mentioned, measles is a killer. When I was training, I can tell you, we used to see measles every day, causing a lot of deaths. When I'm teaching the students, I actually have to go into textbooks and show them that this is measles. Unfortunately, we have had these outbreaks. Now I can happily show the students this is what measles looks like in real life, and not on a video or on a textbook. So that is the main thing. Now, there are some cases when you receive the vaccine and the body actually does not even realize that this is a vaccine. And there are many reasons for that. It could be the way the vaccine was introduced.
Okay.
So when the vaccine is introduced, it's normally given under the skin, or we say subcutaneously. If you go into the muscle, then the vaccine will not respond.
And this is where the training comes in.
Exactly.
Okay.
If, for example, the vaccines, they require what we call cold storage between 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. If they are stored below or stored above, the vaccine is ineffective. And remember, we get these vaccines from abroad. They come from Switzerland, they come from India, they come through a cold chain system. So maintaining the cold chain is also important up to the time that it is given out.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Critical reasons there.
Yes.
Oh, especially for the storage, that one, we're just, crossing our fingers.
But I must emphasize that the storage component has dramatically improved.
Right.
We now have devices where I can get an SMS to my phone which says truck X that's going to Amolata district. The vaccines are being stored at 9 degrees.
All right.
Because there are devices in now.
You know, it's great that you pointed out to the immunity system of a child and its, ability to take up a vaccination. Now, Dr. Ruth, let's just break down the case of this child. There's one death that has been reported. What could have happened? Is it a history that needs to be checked into? Why did the body react this way?
Okay, of course, for every medical case, once a patient comes into hospital, you have to take a detailed history. Definitely. Do a detailed examination and then find out what could be the probable cause of death, what could be the probable cause of this condition. And when we look down, as earlier, when we were discussing, the skin of the child was severely affected, and all the membranes were. Now, if all the membranes are, remember that also the mucous membranes also exist in your respiratory airway. They exist everywhere. So imagine a point where you're reacting and your own airway is also reacting. The child starts wheezing, something like asthma, someone may die.
Right.
It could be a respiratory failure. It could be a multiple organ failure because your entire body is just reacting. So the cause of death cannot be confirmed right now until all the reports have been investigated, until all the autopsies have been done. Then the other thing that I wanted to credit, this is aside your question, is I want to credit the Ugandans for being vigilant. Most times we see reactions happening and we fear to talk about it because it's health workers that are actually doing their job. But it's nice that people are now vigilant and saying, you know what, my child got this vaccine, but they're reacting this way. Because sometimes not only these vaccines that people react to, others react to many. And you have a mother who's coming back with a child after 5 days. They say, okay, my child got a polio thing, but they're reacting this way. But most times we don't see these cases happening. But why? But because this has been a public thing, informed to the people, and it's been a mass campaign, this is coming out. And I hope that every Ugandan goes ahead to actually do this for every single drug. And also to remind people that the National Drug Authority has a reporting system. On their online website, you can report. It's a very secret way of reporting. You can even indicate the person in case someone did give the drug wrongly or didn't preserve it in the cold chain.
Right.
You actually have a say.
So there's a platform for you to
exactly,
give
platform
feedback.
for you to report.
Right.
For any drug, not only a vaccine, any drug that you take.
All right.
And then also a toll-free number that you can get from their website, and also a WhatsApp number to actually communicate to them.
Okay. Dr. Munube, we were having this conversation before we went on air, and you broke it down very well in terms of what could have happened to this child who, died, unfortunately, and the other siblings, that are still under investigations. And you said that the history, like she's saying, is critical, and maybe they could have a history of, a compromised immune system, so to speak. Break it down for us.
So in terms of the disease entity, where you have your mucous membranes and skin affected, there are some conditions that can lead to that. One, there are specific drugs that you can take, and some of these drugs react in different ways. There are some of the drugs where if you take it once, the reaction occurs. So it is idiosyncratic, that it just occurs. And there are others that are dose dependent, that the more you take the drug, the increased risk. There are also infections that can cause this. HIV is very common in our community. Okay. It's one of the things. But I know very well, and it was tested, that none of these children have HIV. So that is completely ruled out. But because there are very many drugs that sometimes we as parents can give, even concoctions that we give, and I know when I was growing up, and I remember if you had a measles-like infection, they would increase your protein content.
Yeah. Trust our mothers to find solutions.
There was fish, there was so many stuff that they would pump down. There were people would give mushroom soup, this type of soup. So you're never sure what exactly could have taken place. But everything is done in good faith. There is no bad faith associated with what you do. It's what we learn.
Right.
But as Dr. Grace had mentioned, we are going to investigate this case, and the Ministry of Health is going to give out the results of what has happened to these children, such that we can reassure the public that our vaccines are safe. They're not associated commonly with death, and they are given to prevent death of very many of our children. Okay. And just to re-emphasize, the measles wards were closed. They were reopened, and now they're actually closing again, just 1 month into the vaccination, because now the children are being protected.
Okay. All right. Dr. Ruth, let's speak to that parent who's watching us today, that parent who has a child who's reacted to this particular vaccination. What should they do?
If your child has reacted to this vaccine, or you think that they have reacted to this vaccine or to any medication, please kindly go to the nearest health center, report this, report what has happened, give a detailed history to your health worker. Your health worker is supposed to take on this, examine your child. Don't wait for the child to get severely ill. If there's a small rash, run to the health center. If there's a small fever, run to the health center. Seek medical advice and let the health worker manage your child. A child shouldn't die that way. And also, with subsequent vaccines, someone should not be scared, because some of the people that receive these vaccines also have other vaccines to get later in life.
Right.
They shouldn't be scared about it and know that it is okay. It is safe to have a small reaction. In case it's a severe reaction, please kindly run to the health center, have that figured it out, and then also treated. However, the vaccines are safe, they save lives, and hence should be continued to be used.
Okay. So what you're saying is that this was just a special case of this child who lost their lives. It's just one in a million. The others should not get worried. Will the virus, will the symptoms clear by themselves?
So usually when the body responds to the vaccine itself, or the antigen, which is the measles itself, it reacts by forming a mild rash in some cases. Once the body's memory is intact, the rash clears.
Is it a measles-like rash or just a normal rash?
It is a measles-like rash.
Okay.
So the body's memory gets intact and it is stored. It's almost like a computer and your folders. So you have a letter written to NTV, you have a folder for NTV, and it's in NTV folder, and it's there. When I need it, I go back to my NTV folder to get it. It's the same way the body will respond. If you get infected with measles, then it means that that folder will open up and go and chase the virus and clear it up. And I must say that every single death is a worry, even though in statistics they tell you one in so many, but that one could be your child. That one could be anyone's child.
Right.
So we don't want to play it down that it's one in any. It's anyone's child that can really get affected. So there is emotions, but we just want to reassure the public that when this occurs, we need to ensure that we have made the right statement and we have confirmed that it was actually measles that killed the child.
All right. Moving forward, are we learning anything from this in terms of you, the gurus? Because you've broken it down clearly, and you said that one of the reasons as to why we're having these complaints could be the lack of taking note of the history of this child, the individual children who reacted differently. That's one. So moving forward, are we looking at that possibility whereby next time we're having a mass vaccination drive that is taken care of, whereby we get down into the history of these children? I know it will be expensive, but this is a child who lost their lives, could be prevented, for example. So is that a possibility moving forward in terms of the lessons learned?
Well, yes, when you look at the vigilance, this is good to learn from, because when any drug is being formed, clinical trials are made. And sometimes some drugs are administered before all the clinical trials are actually completed. But in this case, it's a completed clinical trial. However, even if a drug is completed a clinical trial, it's still, anything that happens still addresses how best they should improve it. So if these reactions are being made and being seen in this measles rubella vaccine, then these are actually going to be submitted. I don't think that it's going to just end here. The World Health Organization has to know and have to inform Gavi or any other supplier of the vaccines, and this should be addressed later. And then also in reassuring the public that yes, it is the right of a patient, it is a right of a mother, it's a right of a father, a right of a child to know what are they going to receive in their body, and also their right to ask what is going to happen. And it is okay that these reactions have happened, we have gotten to know about it, which is good, because sometimes they may happen. Thank God for social media.
Right.
Sometimes they may happen and after we don't know. But then we say, okay, we have done this. Then also remember that each other day we are having mass vaccinations happening in the country.
Right.
This is not the first one. Every other day, how many mothers are giving birth in the country? How many mothers are actually receiving BCG vaccine for their babies? We're having mass vaccines every other day, just that they're not being mentioned in public.
Right.
But it's actually happening. Okay. So vaccines should be continued. They are safe. Reactions happen, and perhaps we should have more time to address what could have been a side effect, an adverse effect.
All right. Okay. Dr. Munube, let me ask you this as we wrap this up. Dr. Ruth did point out to the fact that a child could have gotten the vaccination but not gotten immunized against it. So how do parents go about knowing that? And we're talking about parents who have had children who have zero side effects, zero reactions to this. So how do we go about, verifying whether this vaccination is actually working in my child or not?
So I would say that parents will not be able to know that.
Okay.
I think let's start that way. What we do in the vaccination or in immunization campaigns, we look at percentages. We look at a terminology called herd immunity. It means that if I have 100 people to vaccinate, I want to achieve more than 95% of those people vaccinated. Now, when that occurs, we may have 5% of people who don't respond, like you mentioned, but they are protected by all the 95.
In that they will not...
They will be protected.
They will not
by
get...
them.
Yes.
So imagine if you are standing in a crowd and you have people around you, and someone wants to attack you, they will never get to you because that crowd is protecting you.
Yeah.
So that's the principle we use.
Okay.
The herd immunity enables us to protect even those children who don't respond to the vaccination.
Right, because no one will be there to infect them, so to
Exactly.
speak. Right.
Exactly.
If the community is saved, then even that one who did not benefit from it will be saved.
Exactly.
Because no one would, transfer the infection.
But
All
this
right.
shouldn't call for everyone to just choose their children.
Exactly.
Because we have to have the herd immunity, so someone has to
Right.
get vaccinated somewhere.
Okay.
Would be nice.
All right. Thank you so much for coming through. We've learned quite a bit. At least now you've sounded reassurance to the public, which is quite critical. And for the parents who have children who've reacted, at least now we have a reassurance that these things will just clear off. And if they can, actually, they must take these children to the nearest health centers for further investigation, so to speak. Many thanks, Dr. Munube, for coming through, and also Dr. Grace for coming through. Truly appreciate that. Hashtag Morning at NTV is where we can engage. Of course, you can tag us directly at Malaki Vilodera and at Romeo Busiku across all the social media platforms. We are linking directly to Romeo Busiku. Romeo, what do you have for us?